opening. This is really a moment in American television history.
And from cities across America, this is a national town meeting.
Now, in a moment, we'll go to Moscow.
President Gorbachev and President Yeltsin take questions from Americans. Now reporting from ABC News World Headquarters in New York, Peter Jennings.
Well, welcome to everybody all along the ABC network from East Coast to West Coast.
See the guy sitting there on the left? What, the cameraman's just walking in front, above the Saint in George. See him? That's Posner.
There is
look at this guy.
Mr. Yeltsin on the right and Mr. Gorbachev.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Do you like Peter Jennings or do you like me? This happens. Show him the still. We've got, look at this, on the left, Boris, Mikhail in the center, and look on the right here, Vladimir. Did not bad for a kid from Stuyvesant High School. Huh? Did my name come up at all during these? No, afraid not. Now, may I just take a moment, self-indulgent as this will appear to be. This is our new stationery. Yes, you've wanted it, you've asked for it, you've breathlessly awaited Posner and Donahue, a new American television show. And this guy goes on TV with Peter Jennings. Oh, my heart. No kidding. Posner and Donahue are doing a syndicated television program which premieres on the weekend of October 13th, our first program. You'll be competing with Pat Buchanan. You know, we'll be, I assume some stations may run us on a Sunday morning, some Sunday evening, over the weekend. You'll be competing with Robert Novak.
What about you? You'll be competing with?
Well, it says Posner and Donahue.
All right.
Now I have some personal questions to ask you, and as we begin our odyssey here, Posner and Donahue. And I'll begin by making a confession to you. I am rich. I make a lot of money.
That's what my wife tells me.
Now here's my question. We are not yet messianic enough to believe that we're a sure shot here. We could bomb just like every other mortal. We could also hit. Now, as a young man who grew up at the knee of your father, who taught you very earnestly and passionately, you write about it in your best-selling book, the faith of communism, and that's what it is, a faith, not unlike Americans taught their kids, the faith of Catholicism or Judaism or whatever it might be. You were raised with the faith of communism, socialism, communism. I wonder what your father would say, and what's going to happen if you get rich? Is little Vladimir from Stuyvesant High School coming back after 38 years in the Soviet Union, proud member of the Communist Party for more than 2 decades? Is it possible that you could come back in your 57th year to the United States and lose your soul? And do you feel a moral squeeze here?
I think I do, probably. You know, my father worked for Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer in this country, and back in 1946, he was making $25,000 a year.
Good money.
In those years, very good money. And he left that for an ideal. He took his family to the Soviet Union, where he knew he would never make anything close to that, but because he had an ideal, and it was an ideal I was brought up with, and that I believed in. The ideal came crashing down around our heads, those of us who believed, And I still feel uncomfortable when I think about some people being very rich and others being very poor. And that's what I don't like about a system that allows that to happen. And I think there's an honest way of making money and a dishonest way. But I've always felt uncomfortable when I make what I consider to be a lot of money. There's something in me, I guess, that's from my father or from wherever it comes from. And there is something there that makes it difficult to accept the idea of having a whole lot of money when others really have a tough life.
Mm-hmm. So your conscience is part of this. And whose conscience wouldn't be? This to me is to understate it, at the very least, a fascinating moral dilemma, which, in my opinion, should extend to all thinking men and women. And it certainly is one that I would guess you probably thought, I'm sure you thought about this long before I did, because of the way you were raised. And you write in your book, in both societies, that is to say the United States and the Soviet Union, we need to be honest in appraising the limits, not simply of expression, but of practicing human freedom in all areas of life. This is a very interesting paragraph. If we find that existing limits are not consistent with our ideals, we have the moral obligation to protest against them. In relation to socialism and the Soviet Union, that poses one set of issues. For America, the conflict is between her deep-rooted democratic tradition and an economic system that gives power and privileges to the few. Sooner or later, that basic conflict has to be faced. Having lived in America, having grown up with its traditions and people, I believe when those fundamental questions confront them, as they inevitably will, they will come down on the side of democracy. So you see capitalism as a very real threat to democracy.
Yes, I do.
I would assume also that you see the manner in which capitalism has evolved, especially during the heyday of the Reagan years, as perhaps bringing us closer to the brink of this moral dilemma, but more in the more personal way, to the brink of the undermining of our democratic ideals. We already see, I assume you think we already are undergoing this terrible.
Well, I think it's obvious. I mean, I'm not the only one who sees it. I think that there are a lot of people who do. I think if you look at some of the ideals expressed by people like Tom Paine and Tom Jefferson, today, if people don't know who wrote it, they'll say, that's communist, you know, blabber. We don't want it. It's the ideals on which this country were founded. They have been undermined. I mean, what, you know, forget about communism in the Soviet Union. It's failed, it's admitted, and it's done with. But there's a lot of things to think about here, really.
You get some help just today in the Washington Post. Let me just read this, and then I'll show you the final paragraphs that I've committed to our computer here. Richard Cohn, in an article titled Greed Incorporated, begins his piece in today's Washington Post by saying, "Where's communism just when you need it?"
Great line.
I ask that question because Time Warner, the conglomerate created in the name of synergy but in the cause of greed, has it announced that it will lay off 600 of its magazine employees, including 19 of 75 correspondents at the little magazine that started it all, Time. With the hypocrisy of a parent telling a punished child, "This hurts me more than it hurts you," management deemed that the cuts painful, immoral, deemed that the cuts are painful. Immoral, Cohn writes, would have been a better word. Why is that? Because last year, Time Warner chairman Stephen J. Ross took home $74.9 million in cash under 2 bonus programs and earned another $3.3 million in salary.
I like the word earned.
Now, this audience, I assume, agrees with Mr. Cohn. How much should Stephen J. Ross earn? Mr. Cohn also refers to Lee Iacocca, the strutting CEO of Chrysler, worth $4.8 million last year, not to mention $20.5 in 1986. Chrysler's declining share of the market, it's red ink. Should he make that? Should the chairman of the board of Disney make more in one day than his employees make in 1 year? So now what shall we do about this, proud Americans? I bring a former member of the Communist Party, to discuss this with us. Limits? What limits? Who shall set these limits? And by the way, how much do you make? Now, just let me, Vladimir, take a moment here. If this doesn't make, will this make Katharine Graham feel guilty? And what happens if Newsweek has to lay off some people? Not to mention the Washington Post, in which beloved newspaper appears the following 2 paragraphs, concluding Mr. Cohn's article. Here we go. Economics is not called the dismal science for nothing. What is perhaps most dismal about it is how totally it lacks a moral component. That has to be supplied by the community at large, particularly the political journalistic community. But in the United States in recent years, the political community has turned groupie to the stupendously rich, and the journalistic community has followed suit. Everything, including morality, is measured by the size of the deal. So in a way, we have returned to the day of the robber baron. It's not that workers are getting starvation wages anymore. It's rather that the social restraints that for a time kept avarice in check have been junked. Little wonder, then, that Stephen J. Ross felt free to take $78,176,000 from his company one year and fire employees the next. He knew he would be admired for the money he made and not for how he made it. You could have written that, huh?
I wish I could have. Very well written. But I agree totally. There is something unfair in that. There really is. There's no reason in the world why anyone should be able to take home $78 million. It just goes beyond any kind of morality. And don't tell me who puts on the limits.
Oh, can he take home
Not a
$68
question of
million?
that. I think
58? Let us at least struggle with the consequences of your position. That's
the
what I asked you.
consequences of my position are, I think, that there should be some kind of laws and perhaps some kind of very carefully thought out taxation looking at the number of poor people you have, the people in the streets, not you, not this country, in general, any country. I think you measure the moral fiber of a country not by how well its rich live, but by how poorly its poor live. Look at the weak, look at where their situation is, and say, that is where this country is standing today. And if you have, I mean, what you have today is like India. You have these Maharajas. And you also have your Bombays, for God's sake. And I don't see how you marry that with the ideal that all men are created equal and have certain inalienable rights. They don't. Because if they're born in the wrong place at the wrong time, they have no rights. Or they have 2 strikes against them when they're born.
Now let me give you, they will cringe at the thought that I might speak for the Reagan position. If you start to manage the ability of men and women to earn their own living, you set up enormous bureaucracies, of which we have now in Washington, D.C. and in state capitals, disquieting evidence of waste, of in baskets and out baskets, of people who drink coffee, of people who are protected by the noble idea of civil service and other structures established under Roosevelt. And you disallow the entrepreneurship that fuels a healthy society and allows for the creation of jobs and wealth for more people so that all boats will rise with the tide.
Nice picture. You know what? We still have, but not the same way. We had the KGB. You've got the IRS. And what it effectively does is allow the rich to get richer and keep the poor poor. It's huge. It doesn't really tax the rich. You have a million loopholes. You've got wonderful lawyers. And in the long run, I've heard that millionaires, some of whom had money given back to them. My father had a lawyer who said, you're paying too many taxes. I'll make the government give back money. What about the poor guy who can't hire a lawyer? I mean, this whole thing is crazy. I say, look to Europe. There are plenty of countries there. Look at Germany. Look at the way they're handling things. There are things to learn in how not to have that big a bureaucracy, how to have a little bit more social justice and a little bit more social equality. Look at Scandinavia. I don't see copy, but look, because I have this feeling that Americans tend to think that they do everything better. And they don't. We all have to learn from each other. And Europe has some things to teach. And I'm not saying communism. I'm saying look at their capitalism. It's a little bit different.
Vladimir, we will take a brief pause. During the next 2 minutes, our audience will be exposed to an income-generating exercise we call commercials here in the capitalist market. We are on the Donahue Show with Vladimir Posner in New York City, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Ask you a personal question. Have you ever burnt your rice in vermicelli?
Bye, Mom!
Maybe you left it for a second? Fortunately, there's new Lipton Golden Sauté. In one step, your rice and vermicelli come out golden every time because Lipton has already sautéed it for you. No skillet, no risk.
Don't risk your rice. Get new Golden Sauté.
When things get tough, remember, Shake and Bake makes it easy to treat your family to plump, juicy pork chops without frying. Why fry? Shake and Bake.
Some people, you tell them a Lender's bagel has complex carbohydrates, 20% more than a lot of cereals people call healthy, and they still think good stuff has to come in a bowl. Well, there you go. Lender's bagels. Who knew they were this good?
More pecan sauce!
Wait! This ain't paste pecan sauce.
No, it's new paste thick and chunky salsa. Big chunks of tomatoes, onions, and peppers. Perfect for dipping. And it's got something no other thick and chunky salsa has, the great taste of paste. So try new paste thick and chunky in mild, medium, and hot.
Who was that pitch man anyway? I don't know, but he left us this.
Pick up the thick and chunky one. Pick up the paste.
When you walk through our door, you'll know we're a craft store.
Wisconsin Craft Market carries thousands of items for every craft need and idea books to show you how.
From silk and dried flowers, wedding and cake decorating supplies, fabric painting and art supplies.
Stitchery kits and miles of yarn. We've got crafts for kids and frames galore.
The biggest selection at great prices.
Everything you'll need to start doing your how-toing.
This week, save 20% on the area's best selection of stitchery kits, and all cross-stitch books are also 20% off. Sale ends Saturday at Wisconsin Craft Market.
Hi, Vladimir Posner's on the line. Go ahead. Are you? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I've observed Mr. Posner's evolution over a number of years. I'm a former Soviet citizen who's been living in the United States for the past 17 years. And this man has evolved from a complete supporter of the former system, the Brezhnev regime, all the way through into this great Democrat who is advocating the system under which I live. I must say that we lived under complete poverty there, under the system that Mr. Posner has defended all his life. And he's still doing it, and still continues to do that in a very eloquent, I must say, manner.
Mr.
But
Posner,
nevertheless, it's still the same.
Yeah.
And he's being very hypocritical in his way of evolving into this very smooth
let's see if, all right, let's let him comment. Stay with us, Vladimir.
You want me to comment on what?
On the accusation of his observation. I mean, he's suggesting...
Well, he's saying I'm hypocritical, I'm this, I'm that. What am I supposed to say? No, I'm not. I'm an honest man. Trust me. Believe. I mean, you know, come on. This man has, he left the Soviet Union, he said, 17 years ago. He's living here now. He doesn't like me. He's entitled to that. I'm living in the Soviet Union. I left here 40 years ago. I go back and forth. Yes, I defended the system. I've not changed my colors. I still think socialism is a wonderful idea. I hope it can work somewhere. It did not work in the Soviet Union. So what am I supposed to say to this man?
if I could just, have you read his book?
No, I haven't.
I think you'll find...
I'll send him a copy.
Yeah, I think you'll find... you may be surprised by the introspection here.
I might be surprised, but may I make one point? That the flip remarks that Mr. Posner made in comparing the American system, or the KGB, of all things, to the IRS is extremely insulting.
To the IRS or to the KGB?
Well, your comparison was very insulting.
He will not be alone in suggesting that that is an exaggerated...
sense of humor is what I was trying
parallel.
In talking about the KGB, the sense of humor has to be very much reserved. You know, because many people have suffered because of it.
I think you would agree.
Oh, horribly so. In fact, I mean, we're not seriously comparing the KGB and the IRS. KGB was, and to a certain point still is, a horrendous organization. And many, not suffered, many people have died because of it, the most horrible deaths.
Are you there, caller? Hi.
Hi, how are you, Phil?
Good.
I just want to say that coming from a human services background where there's never enough money to even provide competent help to care for people who are the most in need, I have to agree with Vladimir. Nobody should be making $78,000. And what makes the managing editor...
78,000, you know.
I'm sorry, 78 million. Well, 78,000 even is a lot of money for someone in human services. But I'd like to know what makes the editor of Time magazine or the managing editor or whatever more competent in his job than I am in mine, making only about $18,000 a year.
Mm-hmm. Teachers might ask the same question.
I agree.
About, you know, paying $1 million to a guy who hits a round object with a piece of wood. When we would all agree the former is the more important job.
Hi. I just wanted to say that I agree with your morals totally about how America should be a little influenced by the European ways. But how could you say that when Phil just told us that you're going to be starting a show with him and you were sitting next to Gorbachev, and how could you say that you have those morals and then you seem to hold yourself in such high respect?
I don't see why you say that. Sitting next to, I don't get paid for sitting next to Gorbachev, believe me. The only reason I was there was to start the show rolling with Peter Jennings, and since both the presidents were late, I didn't even get a chance to speak, so I just sat there. It was rather weird, to be quite frank with you. And I don't see anything wrong in doing a show with someone and making what should be considered to be a normal living. But I think that there comes a point, and I realize that, you know, when is normal and not normal? Is making $5,000 a month a normal standard? I think it really compares to how people live in the country in general. Do you have poverty? If so, what are you doing to solve it? And I think there's money that goes so far that it really, there's no way to justify it. And I'm not saying I have the answers. It's just an intuition, a feeling that I have, that there's something wrong. I'm not saying that I'm your paragon at all.
Could you give us a brief answer why communism broke down in Russia?
Brief. I think it's because communism cannot work in general, not only in Russia. And the reason socialism didn't work is because Lenin tried to do something that Marx said cannot be done. Just made a big mistake, and you're asking me to be brief. I could go into detail.
Isn't it a stunning example of what you can do to over 200 million people across 11 time zones for 70 years with terror?
Well, let's not forget that for a long period of those years, the people believed in it. That's the whole point. If they were terrorized from day one, when Stalin died, and I was there when it happened in in March of 1953, the people were weeping in the streets. They were not afraid of Stalin. They loved this man. Let's not forget that for at least, I would say 60 of those 73 years, there was a tremendous degree of faith.
And the faith...
So what you can say is you fooled people for a long time.
So he was a magician. He was killing people out of sight and with no accounting from a controlled media.
Absolutely, and there was a strong promise of this something lying ahead, of this wonderful pie in the sky, as it turned out to be. But something people worked for, believed in, sacrificed for. That's where the real tragedy is. If they hadn't believed, we would not be in the situation we are today when people's ideals have been destroyed, when their pride has been destroyed, when they don't know where they're going anymore. Such a more tragic situation than if they simply hadn't believed.
There has to be a collective, maybe unspoken pit-of-the-stomach feeling now, and this is not to lord over anybody. You've made it very clear we have our own problems. So it's not a lofty moral observation and looking down at anybody. But how many millions of Soviet citizens have to be saying in the corner of their souls, I've been suckered. What a sucker. There's something defeating, self-defeating about that realization.
It's devastating because what it does, among other things, is it creates anger. And it's an anger to which a fascist, for instance, can play, as happened in Germany in the late 1920s. And we now have our neo-fascists in Russia. For instance, a man by the name of Zhirinovsky, who is playing to that sentiment and who got 7% of the popular vote during the Russian elections for president of Russia. 6 million people voting for him.
And Tajikistan, T-A-J?
Tajikistan.
Tajikistan has just had the old communists have taken control, are back.
That's correct. In 4 of the 5 Central Asian republics, the old party structure has been preserved in a very foxy way, and they now are a ballast and a very negative influence on what used to be the Soviet Union.
And we'll be back in just a moment. Who's going to give you the tops in great taste? Dairy Queen. Who's going to give you a treat so cool it's hot? Who's going to give you the original Blizzard flavor treat? With all your favorite fruit and candy flavors, like Butterfinger Candy, Heath Bar, and Oreo. The Dairy Queen Blizzard, it's so right for right now. We treat you right. Dairy Queen.
Dear Folgers, I was catering brunch for 950 people when I forgot the ground coffee. Then I was reminded of your restaurant commercials where people were secretly switched to Folgers Crystals. So I tried it. Let's go. I never received more compliments. You made a believer out of me and a lot of other people.
Folgers Crystals, proven with fresh brewed coffee drinkers.
Thanks, Folgers. Ed Merrigan.
We've just enlarged our warehouse showroom, and now Coil Carpet One has more carpeting in stock than ever. To celebrate, we've put all wear-dated carpet on sale, including queen carpet, starting at just $9.99 a square yard. Warehouse prices even on top of the line wear-dated carpeting, including the traffic control fiber system specifically designed to fight matting. So go ahead, walk all over us during our showroom renovation sale. Coil Carpet One, South Oneida, Green Bay. I'm Bart Starr with a message to parents. When it comes to the abuse of drugs and alcohol, no kid or town, no matter how big or how small, is immune. It's a fact. Drugs are as big a problem in our small towns as they are in larger cities. And the only way we can beat this ugly opponent is by talking with our kids. What kids hear too often is that drugs are okay. What they need to hear is the truth. Remember, we're talking about your hometown and about your kids.
To be part of the audience, please send a postcard to Donahue Tickets, care of NBC, 30 Rockefeller Plaza, New York, New York, 10112. Remember, postcards only, please.
Did I overstate the case about your vulnerability had the coup succeeded?
Well, I think you dramatized it a little bit. I'm sure that people like myself would have been arrested, but we weren't the first people on the hit list. You realize that people like Yakovlev, Shevardnadze, they were the ones who, Yeltsin, obviously, they were the first in order.
And where were you when you learned of the coup?
Out in the country. It happened early in the morning.
Outside of Moscow?
Yeah, about 15 miles from Moscow. It happened, was announced at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I had just come back from my morning run and turned on the television set.
Yeah. And did you immediately get in the car then and go into the city?
Absolutely, with my wife, right away.
So you won into the heart of the...
With the tanks.
You rode in with the tanks?
There were tanks coming in as we went in.
You had to be scared.
Very much so. In fact, I felt that we were dead, and not physically, but I felt that it was all over, that that perhaps this wouldn't last all that long. Maybe it would last a year, maybe two. But for us, for people like myself, for people who've been very much involved in the change, it was all over.
So you never even thought that Gorbachev had a chance of coming back. Your first feelings?
These people had the KGB, the army, the police, and the party. There was no way they could lose, except if the people stood up. And the people had never stood up.
Now, do I understand that you went on Nightline then shortly thereafter? Or was it on the day of the coup?
No. The day of the coup, I got several calls from different media organizations. I said I didn't know anything in detail, and if I made a statement, I wanted to make a statement to as broad an audience as possible, because I didn't know if I'd be able to make a second statement. So I waited until the next day. And I also spoke to one of Yeltsin's aides, asking whether they wanted me in the White House of Russia, as that building is called, or doing foreign broadcasts. And they called back an hour later and said, do the foreign broadcasts, because we have people in the White House to do the Russian radio, but we don't have people to go out there and speak the languages. So from that point on, I did Nightline and a lot of other shows, French shows, English, and what have you.
And you did Nightline, and shortly thereafter the phone rang at your apartment?
Yes.
And
a voice, well, I picked up the phone, I said hello, and a voice said, Posner, and I said yes. And the voice said, you've got a very long tongue, we're going to cut it off. And hung up.
You didn't recognize the voice?
Oh, no, and I know another friend of mine who was doing the same thing as I was, and he got a call like that, too. And, you know, and after that, we all started doing more shows than ever before, because you figure if they're going to cut your tongue off, you may as well talk as much as you can while you're still
yeah. Please let me share with this audience. Here are a edited collection of the openings of NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw during these 3 days that shook the world. This will take us back to recent, very recent history and just give us a visual sense of what was happening during those very dramatic days. Roll the tape.
Tanks remain in the streets of Moscow tonight as the leaders of the coup against Gorbachev hold on against a popular uprising. Gunfire in the streets of Moscow tonight, and tanks roll as Boris Yeltsin continues to lead the resistance. The tanks have left the streets of Moscow, and Gorbachev is returning. A day when the people prevailed, the hardliners lost.
It's a good day. It's a very good day.
The founder of the Soviet secret police, his statue comes down as the people celebrate their victory. Mikhail Gorbachev returns to Moscow, tired and angry, but still defending a place for the Communist Party. Tonight, Gorbachev has a powerful partner at the top, Boris Yeltsin calling many of the shots.
Vladimir Posner returns to offer his very personal eyewitness account and opinions about the Soviet Union then and now. Where do we go from here? And we'll be back in a moment.
Meg Moorhead, are you sure you're eating the most nutritious cornflakes?
I'd bet my begonias on it.
Skip Sims, are you sure you're eating the best tasting cornflakes?
I'd bet my business, dude.
You may not know it, but there's a better cornflake from Total. Total cornflakes have 4 times the nutrition of Kellogg's, and they taste better, too. So before you bet on your cornflakes, remember, the best cornflakes are from Total.
She was sympathetic. My gynecologist said she'd been through it and the irritation could be intense. You couldn't cure a recurrent vaginal yeast infection fast enough. She said a woman should first see a doctor for an initial diagnosis. After that, with gynolotrimine, you can cure yourself. It's available full prescription strength without a prescription. She said it would bring me early treatment and early cure. Gynolotrimine, my gynecologist's cure, and mine.
Discover the world of Zoll Stone, where Earth's natural elements come into their own. At Zoll, you'll find what you're looking for, and more. Zoll combines the beauty of marble with fireplaces and bathroom vanities. Durable granite kitchen countertops reflect elegant design. Lightweight stone offers a variety of options. Zoll knows the value of quality and beauty. Zoll Stone, where everyone finds what they're looking for.
This week, it's Kohl's Anniversary Sale. Get the lowest prices of the season on entire stocks throughout the store. Entire stocks of athletic shoes, Lee's for the family, Cherokee for misses and juniors, and all intimate apparel. The lowest prices on entire stocks of fine jewelry, men's and women's casual shoes and boots, Buster Brown and Health-Tex, men's brand name sportswear, and all luggage. Plus, get more lowest prices on domestics, family outerwear, and sweaters. For the lowest prices of the season, it's Kohl's Anniversary Sale.
It's getting late. I better call my mom. Me too. Hi, Mom. Yo, Mom. Oh, we're having chicken and stovetop stuffing tonight? We're having stovetop instead of potatoes? With the celery and onions? Herbs and spices? What time? 6? At 8. Oh, 5 hours. Oh, Ma, could Pete come over? Mom, why don't I invite Bob? Yeah? All right, thanks a lot. Bye. Yeah!
You can never get enough stovetop stuffing instead of potatoes. Try stovetop microwave stuffing, specially made for the microwave.
Hi, I thank you for waiting. Vladimir's on the line.
Yes, Mr. Posner, I was wondering if you felt that Gorbachev's coup was a staged event, a very sophisticated staged event, in order to increase his popularity that was waning in the country because of the economic problems that were happening.
Mr. Posner commenting.
No, the answer is I don't think so at all, and Gorbachev came back weakened rather than stronger, his popularity even lower than before, and Yeltsin much stronger than before the coup. It was a genuine coup, and of course it was not orchestrated by Gorbachev, although it was his fault up to a point because he appointed all of those men to office over the protest of Parliament that did not want to appoint, for instance, Vice President Yanayev.
Are you there, caller? Hi.
Yes, I'm here. Hi, Phil. How are you?
Good.
First of all, allow me to say I have huge admiration for Mr. Posner. My question is, now that socialism has tumbled in the Soviet Union, who's in control of the Soviet Union? Is it Boris Yeltsin or Mikhail Gorbachev?
There is really no Soviet Union now. There are republics that are independent, each president of which has an awful lot of power. Gorbachev is the only man who can address them all, being not part of any one republic. But he really doesn't have that much power left. The real power today is probably Yeltsin plus a couple of other republics with him. There is no Soviet Union anymore in the old sense.
Yes. Is this post-coup, this tape? Watch this. Here is Boris Yeltsin. You know, he's not making a vulgar sign, if you know what I mean. But it is very dismissive and embarrassing behavior before the Council of Deputies. Watch Yeltsin's treatment of Gorbachev. This will make Mrs. Gorbachev wince.
Boris Nikolaevich has given me some document, a brief report of the session of the cabinet ministry. I haven't read it yet.
Well, why don't you? You want this audience to know that Gorbachev gave Yeltsin the old heave-ho, didn't he?
Gorbachev did more than that. Back in 1987, he tried to destroy Yeltsin. When Yeltsin stood up at a plenary session of the Communist Party Central Committee and criticized Gorbachev. Gorbachev tried to get rid of him, in fact called him a political corpse. And when Yeltsin was in the hospital, he was shot full of dope and brought before a committee to explain what he'd said and was not even capable of speaking, was dismissed and kind of forgotten. And one should not be surprised that Yeltsin cannot forgive Gorbachev for that treatment.
So, given that you don't like him either, this behavior, all right. So, would you say then that Yeltsin's civil appearance, for example, with Mr. Gorbachev on ABC with Peter Jennings, is really the behavior of a man who apparently is not interested in walking all over the face of a man who humiliated him thusly?
I think he went on under duress. He really didn't want to go on with Gorbachev. He was pushed and pulled, and finally he went on, but you could see that he was not totally happy being sitting there next to Gorbachev. And when I invited him on my show the next week, him being Yeltsin, he said, only without Gorbachev.
So this is, while we see them having their photograph taken together,
I think they both understand the necessity of being together for the country's good. This is something Yeltsin and Gorbachev both understand. But there is a dislike. There is just this, they're not really compatible.
Right. It also is interesting behavior for Gorbachev, who came up through the Communist Party and still didn't get it. He didn't seem to understand the changes he himself had unleashed. He would never have appointed those people if he had. I ask you to give your attention to this one more tape. Here's Gorbachev after the coup. This guy's been held for 3 days. They cut his phone lines. Reza, in very imprecise language, certainly had to have a nervous breakdown. Very real threat to her emotional and physical well-being. Here he is after that event, trying to save the Communist Party. Watch this.
Don't you think that the Communist Party of the Soviet Union must be disbanded as a criminal organization?
I can't agree. I would never allow communism to be driven out.
We'll sign a directive about cease of activity of the Russian Communist Party.
We will be Democrats till the end, and then everyone will be with us.
You know, Yeltsin to Gorbachev.
Very much so. Almost childishly in this particular instance. Signing this in public when Gorbachev is speaking, really spiting Gorbachev in a way. And understandably, but it's not a very attractive picture when you look at it.
And we'll be back in a moment.
It's Clarence the Crusher. There's too much food in these Encore Salisbury steaks.
Tell him, Crusher.
How can I eat all these juicy, charbroiled steaks in rich, beefy gravy?
But Crusher, Encore is a 2-pound family-size entree.
I don't have a family.
I do. And we love Encore. We'll be over at 6 tonight.
Really? You will?
Al, about this Encore veal parmigiana.
5 tomorrow?
Oh.
For tasting more, it's Encore. Honey?
Good, you're back.
Oh, how's your speech going?
Still practicing.
Yeah, sounded great last night.
Got my secret?
Oh, your very womanly, pH-balanced, secret solid? Yes, I got it. I also got some very strange looks.
Okay, I owe you.
You know, you could use my spray.
Mine's better.
A woman's perspiration pH can be a lot higher than a man's. Secret is pH balanced to work with a woman's chemistry to help keep her dry.
Wish me luck.
Hey, you're gonna be terrific. Don't sweat it.
I won't.
Looking for the latest in today's styles, cuts, perms, at prices you can afford? We are the one with locations in Oshkosh, Green Bay, and Manitowoc. We're ready to treat you beautifully. Martin School of Hair Design, a great place to get your hair done and a fun place to go to school. For a hair appointment or career training information, call the Martin School of Hair Design nearest you today.
When what you eat and drink upsets your stomach, you want a medicine that works directly on your stomach itself. Pepto-Bismol. As it coats, Pepto delivers powerful medicine directly to your stomach, right where you hurt. It's powerful relief. Pepto-Bismol. It's real medicine for your stomach.
Yes,
yes, I'd like to know what you thought. I mean, this was a very well-planned coup. How you felt that the media played an important part as alerting all of the people of what was going on, and what your thoughts are of the media being so involved.
The media was not, were not involved. The media were controlled immediately by the people in power. State television, state radio, several newspapers run by the Communist Party were all saying the same thing, not really giving any news. It was the underground press that came out very strong, thanks to Gorbachev, basically, something that appeared, and people tuned into that as well as to foreign broadcasts.
So you could go on Nightline at the time that you did, but you couldn't have gone on...
You see, what they were doing, the people in charge, were trying to look civilized. They were saying, this is a legitimate thing. The president's sick, we've taken over, but this is legitimate, this is constitutional, we're not cutting the lines, the airwaves are open, so that's why I could do something on Nightline, but I could do nothing on Soviet television.
Now, one more point here. Is it possible, and God bless the people who stood there in front of the Russian White House, protecting Yeltsin and the Republic, with barriers and with their bodies. Yeltsin canonized these people, as he should have, in a speech, saving the Republic. But that was a very, very small percentage of Muscovites.
But it was enough. It was 50,000 to 70,000 people surrounding that building, and the army ultimately refused to kill 10,000 to get through.
Right.
That's what really happened.
Practically it worked, yes. But it raises another more important question. What percentage of Muscovites would you guess would be capable of this kind of political action? And how many who didn't speak up maybe quietly hoped the coup would work because of the long lines and the empty bread show?
We know that about 25% of the population supported the coup. About 25%. 75%, well, probably 60% didn't, and the others were undecided. But it's interesting that in Leningrad we had 200,000 people out on the square, and in Moscow we had initially 700 people. 700.
So the capital city then had less passion for the for opposing the coup than did the outer.
In a way, yes. And it's amazing that even 50,000 people stood up after 70 years when no one stood up, and that is also part of the change.
I was just wondering, you went to high school here in the United States, and you said that you had those communistic views. Did you share these with any of your friends, and what opinions did they have?
I shared them with my friends, and I got beat up regularly.
I just thought 40 years ago, I saw a picture some time ago in Hollywood. People were being harassed, movie stars, because they thought they joined the communist organizations. Yeah. Were you available at that time, or your family? Is that why you left this country at that time?
Yeah, that's why my father left, because of the McCarthyism, the witch hunt. Yes, yes.
Hello, Mr. Posner. I wanted to ask you, how do you feel? Do you feel that the Communist Party let you down?
I feel I was stupid to believe in it. I don't want to blame other people. I think that it did mislead the entire country. The leadership committed a crime in that sense.
Mr. Posner, are you still a citizen of this country?
I never was. I was born in Paris, of a French mother and a Soviet father. We lived here for 15 years nearly, but they never became U.S. citizens, and I never became a U.S. citizen.
So you have a Soviet passport.
I'm a Soviet citizen, that's correct.
And you'll be working here in the United States with the highly regarded Phil Donahue. Under the terms of a... So wait a minute. Now, oh, you applaud. I thank you. I know. I feel safe here. Now, is this going to be one of those left-leaning, bleeding heart, feed, give away the wealth of individuals kind of television program in which you are engaged?
No, not at all. No, I mean, I don't look like a bleeding heart, do I? I mean, or do I?
I assume you hope to bring perhaps a perspective to America's Sunday discussion of world events that may not be as visible on
I would hope that, but also, as you know, this show is going to be in the Soviet Union, where you're going to bring a perspective that many Soviets never see. So I think it could be instructive, let me put it that way. Enlightening, perhaps.
May the Lord shine his blessings down upon us for that purpose, and we'll be back in just a moment.
I think I'll make fresh dressing.
Good seasons?
Mm-hmm.
Which oil?
Pick a light one.
Dressing's great.
Good seasons, you make it fresh, you make it best.
Alka-Seltzer's Laws of Indigestion. Law number 5. The more sensitive your stomach is to pepperoni pizza, the more you will crave it. For heartburn with headache, you need Alka-Seltzer, because there's no law against fast relief.
Why pick a salsa whose recipe probably came from a boardroom when there's one that came from a real Mexican restaurant? Chi-Chi's Salsa, now at your grocer's.
You really don't expect tissues to be strong. They're supposed to be soft.
Well, you can't have it both ways.
Yes, you can. Now there's a new tissue that's soft and strong. Introducing Puffs Extra Strength.
Look at these wet tissues. The Puffs can hold ice.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, but the other one can't.
Not even one.
Look at them all piling up on the Puffs.
So this is new?
Let me give you the Dave test.
really soft on my nose.
Not bad. I was stuck with a runny nose and just one tissue. It better be
New Puffs Extra Strength. Get a feel for the best.
Les Dump's got the 92 Ford.
Look, the new Ford Taurus. Looks different.
It is. New sleek design.
I think I'm in love.
92 Taurus with a redesigned dash, more comfort and aerodynamic styling. 92 Tempo has a smoother ride for 5. And here's Escort's front-wheel drive compact quality, all with the low Les Dump price. If you haven't seen Les Dump,
You haven't seen your best deal.
you get more from Les Dump, Appleton.
Kick back in comfort during the Lazy Boy Showcase Shop's kickoff sale. Save on these genuine Lazy Boy recliners just in time for your favorite football game at the Lazy Boy Showcase Shop in Green Bay.
Keep smoking crack, and eventually you'll be left with nothing.
Yeah, I was wondering where you believe the U.S. could possibly start in shifting its the meter of success away from money.
I can't answer that question. I once read a book called The Greening of America. I don't know if you ever read it. I think it's something that happens in people. It just happens. You begin to understand that there are other values. I certainly have no answer. How do you make this happen? I'm not, you know, who am I?
Does it bother you, incidentally, on October 24th, Vladimir Posner makes an appearance before the National Press Club in Washington. I can't wait to hear what they might want to ask of you. Does it trouble you to get a little, you know, you are held to a very high standard. It seems to me there's an awful lot of folks out there that just want you to squirm for having ever even considered membership in the Communist Party. Now, as you make your way here as a temporary resident of the United States, you know, how much of this is going to bounce off you?
You know, I'm a former tough commie. It's okay. I can handle it, so don't worry.
Well, it's not about worry. It's about whether or not you ever wonder whether the same standard is applied to Western journalists who may have supported or celebrated Hoover, for example, or the Vietnam War, or the internment of Japanese in World War II. All of this, you know, it seems to me that we demand you look in a mirror and be ashamed of yourself, and yet no such compulsion occurs to anybody on this side of the iron, the used-to-be iron.
I don't know. It's part of the game. You have people who always do that, and I don't think you should take it too seriously. I certainly don't. I mean, you know, you take your licks.
Are you there, caller?
Yes.
You wanted to say?
Mr. Posner is a very charming man, but if he's as critical of capitalism as he professes, what is he going to do with all the money he makes from the proceeds of his new book and show?
You know, let me answer that once I make it. I haven't yet made any at all. I don't know. I don't even know if the show is going to do all that well, frankly. If I make enough, I'll share some.
As we hope
Give me a
all
phone
Americans,
call.
as we hope all Americans would. And we'll be back in just a moment.
More pecani sauce.
Wait. This ain't paste pecana sauce.
No, it's new Paste Thick and Chunky Salsa. Big chunks of tomatoes, onions, and peppers. Perfect for dipping. And it's got something no other thick and chunky salsa has, the great taste of paste. So try new Paste Thick and Chunky in mild, medium, and hot.
Who was that pitch man anyway?
I don't know, but he left us this.
Pick up the thick and chunky one. Pick up the Paste.
Tonight on News 11 at 5.
I'm John Vigeland. In tonight's Taste of Wisconsin, we'll take you to Little Chute and Simon's Cheese, where we'll show you how cheddar cheese curds are produced.
And at 6.
I'm Marty Spatel. 5 years ago today, his career ended in a game against the Chicago Bears. Whatever happened to former Green Bay Packer Tim Lewis? Plus, shoplifting, it's a big problem in Green Bay.
That's tonight at 5 and 6 on The Source, WLUK News 11.
Domino's just what you're into. Domino's just where you're at. Nobody knows like Domino's.
Domino's Pizza doesn't make your pizza until you make your call and delivers in 30 minutes or less, guaranteed.
Nobody knows like Domino's.
Domino's Pepperoni Pizza Feast with extra pepperoni and cheese. Now a medium's just $8.99 or two for $12.99.
Notice these prescription spectacle lenses. Indoors, they're a pleasing blush tint. Outdoors, they darken to screen out uncomfy glare and odious UV. Indoors, back to blush, and so on. They're called Transitions Comfort Lenses, and they're made of lightweight plastic, which permits the delightful pun, light makes them dark, plastic makes them light. New Transitions Comfort Lenses.
See your neighborhood eye care specialist, Dr. Charles Lindman in Sheboygan Falls.
A broken bone's simple to diagnose, but the disease called depression isn't. Many people don't know what to look for. 1 in 4 families will be affected by mental illness, including depression. People like me or you. Know depression's 5 warning signs: hopelessness, noticeable sleeping pattern or weight changes, thoughts of suicide, and not caring anymore. For 24-hour help and a free consultation, call now.
For a free consultation, call Fox Valley Hospital at 800-367-7799.
For a transcript of today's program, send $3 check or money order to Donahue Transcripts, 1535 Grand Street, Denver, Colorado, 80203, or call 303-831-9000.
Like thousands of other children, Billy can't seem to sleep alone. The issue of 3 in a bed. Next, Donahue.
Here's the Bergen Records account of just one of the What a Story in New Jersey, and here's the Los Angeles Times. Thank goodness for color. Yes, and here's a man who had a front row seat to this, too close than he thought at one time.
At this time, who's more powerful, Yeltsin or Gorbachev?
Yeltsin.
Yes.
How long is it going to take for the hearts of the people to forget communism?
Very hard to say. Probably a couple of generations.
Yes. Service is provided and promotional fees paid by the following.
Mr. Posner.
Poland or all fruit, sweetened only with fruit juice, no sugar added. Taste the fruit, not the sugar. Pass the Poland or all fruit, but please don't dare call it jelly.
Remember your first games? They can be your child's first games, too. Candyland, Chutes and Ladders, and Uncle Wiggly, all from Milton Bradley.
For the perfect weekend and the perfect frequent stay program, check into the new Drake, the only Swiss hotel on Park Avenue.